When it comes to Skylanders, Skylanders of the Light and Dark element are a unique pair of elements when it comes to the rest of them. The core 8 elements, water, fire, earth, air, magic, tech, life, and undead, have been a present part of the franchise since the first game, but when it comes to light and dark, they weren't even mentioned until Trap Team's DLC to my knowledge, and because of this, both elements seem to have a small amount of Skylanders. In fact, these two have so few Skylanders that both of them have 10. Combined. Which kind of makes my job pretty easy for the most part. I already went over 2 of the Dark Skylanders, one of them being okay and one of them contained the biggest screw-ups on my channel. There was never a point in Skylanders where the core of light was destroyed, so I don't even know why it's part of her story. God, I wish I did more research on that video, but since I already did 2 videos with the Dark Skylander in it, I feel like it's time to talk about the Skylanders who haven't shown up on the channel yet. Skylanders of the Light element. Since you're a knight and you're a knight, you two are going in your own videos, but these 3 are going to be covered today, especially Aurora because she raises a ton of questions that I want to go into. But with that out the way, let's get into the deep lore of Skylanders of the Light.
Time to shine!
When it comes to Skylanders, especially Dragon Skylanders, Spotlight is extremely special. Not only was she one of the first Light Skylanders to exist in real life, but she's also the only dragon to be part of the Light element. Not to mention that her design looks really cool as well. I just love how streamlined yet shiny it looks. The circles in her wings and tail not only make her look extremely unique, but just based off of her Meet the Skylanders video, I can tell that she's an extremely fun Skylander to play as. She's also voiced by Misty Lee, who, according to her wiki page, also voiced Starstrike, which is also a plus in my book. But with that out the way, let's get into the lore. Spotlight's story doesn't start off with herself, but instead starts with Eon. Eon, when he actually had a physical body before Spyro's adventure, ventured to the Prismatic Palace to find something called the Crystal Core of Light. When he found the crystal in the palace, he reached out to touch it, only for a flash of light to emanate from the core in all directions, and when Eon put his hand down, he saw Spotlight respectfully bowing in front of him. At the time, Eon didn't know that she was a dragon of the light element, but he suspected that the ancients had sent her to him for some reason, so he decided to take her to the core of light and train her as a member of the Skylanders. And when Chaos destroyed it in the first game, most of the Skylanders of the light and dark elements were sent to their respective dimensions, and she would be stuck in the light realm until Cloudcracker Prison was destroyed, which managed to return both elemental Skylanders back to Skylands, and she would make an appearance in the light and the dark novel. Now, before we go to the next Skylander, I need to talk about something that's been a big question in the community for a long while, and that's the banishment of the light and dark Skylanders. There's a lot of speculation on what exactly happened with the light and dark Skylanders and why they weren't alluded to in the games prior, but the reason I think this is because the Skylanders at the time probably didn't know that they were light or dark Skylanders. I don't think I've seen anyone suggest this yet, but it's never stated directly that the light and dark Skylanders inherently knew that they were of those elements. You can easily confuse them for Skylanders of the air and undead elements, and they probably only figured it out when they were banished to the light and dark realms, and they were only released when Cloudcracker Prison exploded, which looks extremely similar to the explosion that sent the Skylanders to Earth. Now, I know you might be wondering, what about all the light and dark Skylanders after Trap Team? And I pretty much have a good answer for that. They just weren't Skylanders at that point, so they wouldn't be near the core of light when it went under, or they wouldn't have tapped into their elemental abilities enough for it to affect them. I know there's that pretty big plot hole with Nightlight in there, but I think there's a pretty good answer for it somewhere. But with that out the way, let's get on to the next Skylander.
Red, set, glow.
Astroblast as a Skylander is one of the strangest characters I've encountered because of his design. At first glance, you'd think he was another light Skylander made for Trap Team, since his weapon looks like it's made out of Traptanium. But he actually is a member of the Superchargers, but I'll get into that later. Let's get into his lore. While on a secret mission into Troll territory, Astroblast crash-landed on a remote island, where he discovered a long-lost artifact that hadn't been seen in eons. A rift engine. When he discovered this, he was attacked by an army of trolls on a nearby canyon ridge, and realizing how much of a problem it would be if the trolls got their hands on this artifact, he drew his pulse laser and began to face the incoming horde. After fighting the horde off all on his own, he took the engine to his ship, the Star Runner, and the engine decided to merge with his ship, causing it to surge with energy as a hologram of Eon appeared. Eon would thank Astroblast for finding the engine and ask him to bring it back to the Academy, which Astroblast would do, and probably not wanting to part with his ship, he would join the Skylanders, and even though his story stops here, there is still a lot of stuff to talk about. Now, the fact that he was on a secret mission with trolls as his adversaries, and he wasn't a Skylander yet, just opens an entire rabbit hole that I wish I could jump down. This just goes back to the faction thing that I was talking about in some of my previous videos. There is so much stuff going on in this world that we just don't get to see, and it's driving me mad. There are so many cool conflicts and histories we could have explored in the games, and we already know that 2 different wars have occurred, along with the fact that there are multiple different factions within Skylands. If any franchise needs spin-off series and games set within the canon setting, Skylanders is that franchise. It's like Star Wars, you can tell whatever story you want, you just need to make sure you don't add anything that contradicts pre-existing lore. You could talk about the political situation of Skylands, what daily life for the average bloke is, how the other races interact with each other, and also answer questions like why so many of the factions side with Chaos. Do they have something to gain from it, and if so, what? I'd honestly like to see a faction like the Archeans return to Skylands, or my perception of them. A faction that isn't just evil for the fun of it, but actually has reasons on why they want to take over Skylands beyond power. That actually sounds like a really good idea for a 7th game now that I think about it. I'll probably play around with an idea like that later. But with that out the way, let's get on to our final Skylander of today.
The speed of light!
Aurora as a Skylander is a character that is shrouded in questions just by her existence alone. There's a lot of stuff involving her that can be covered, but with that out the way, let's get started. Aurora is the niece of Master Eon, and for years he would keep her identity as a secret and try to keep her as far away from harm as possible. But as she grew older, Aurora wanted nothing more than to become a Skylander, but Eon wouldn't allow her to do it. Instead of giving up on her dreams, she would put on a disguise and begin to study swordplay and combat arts under the name Boss Blades McSlashinator. And soon, everyone was talking about this mysterious new warrior and her abilities. And like always, word of this got to Eon and he would go and seek her out. When he learned that this new warrior was actually his niece, he once again refused to put her in the Skylanders team. But before she could protest, he told her that she was being promoted to the Sensei program, and she would go on to train the swashbuckler class of Skylanders under her actual name and identity. But she does admit that Boss Blades McSlashinator was pretty cool. And with that over and done with, let's get to talking about this. Now, the biggest thing that stuck out to me about Aurora is that Eon was actively trying to keep her away from the Skylanders. Now, we've seen Eon show concern for Skylanders in the past before, but never to this extent, which makes me think that there is something bigger going on here. I actually think the main reason that Eon put her in the Sensei's program is because the Senseis probably didn't see too much combat. They'd probably be too busy teaching other Skylanders to actually go out and fight, and to top this all off, it would be the best compromise for Eon and Aurora. Aurora would be able to be a Skylander, and Eon wouldn't be constantly pestered about it, along with her being relatively safe. But this just pales in comparison with one of the biggest questions involving her character. What happened to Eon's sibling? Now, I believe that Eon's sibling is actually dead because of how overprotective he is of her. Think about it. If her parents were still alive, then why weren't they mentioned once? It is mentioned that Eon was keeping her secret since she was little, so it would make sense that he could have raised Aurora on his own. But this is, once again, all speculation. This also made me wonder how old Aurora is. I know, it's rude to ask a woman her age, but seriously, like, how old is she? Her uncle is over 100 years old if my math is correct, and she looks like she just got out of college. But with that all said and done, I think this is where this video is going to end. Like always, hit the subscribe button if you enjoy content like this, share this around so I can grow as a channel, leave some comments down below to make the algorithm happy, and once again, I will see you all in the next one.